Welcome back to QHSE Talks. Let me start with a simple but powerful question. When you hear the word sustainability, do you think about environmental activism, or do you see it as a core skill set for safety professionals? Chapter 33 challenges us to rethink that assumption entirely, because sustainability is not just an environmental topic or a corporate buzzword. When you look at it through the CSP Blueprint 11 framework, it becomes a strategic discipline directly connected to safety leadership, risk management, and organizational resilience. The chapter begins with a foundational definition, meeting present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs, rooted in long-standing policy concepts like the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969. But what makes this chapter critical for CSP preparation is not the definition itself, it's how the concept is operationalized. Sustainability stops being theoretical and starts becoming measurable, manageable, and aligned with the competencies expected from modern safety professionals. The strongest alignment sits within Domain 7, Environmental Management Systems. Here, sustainability principles are not abstract ideas, they translate into real operational priorities: pollution prevention, energy management, material life cycle thinking, waste reduction, and biodiversity conservation. The environmental domain shows how ecosystem protection is directly tied to hazard prevention and long-term risk control. For a safety professional, this means understanding that environmental degradation, resource scarcity, and climate pressures are not external issues. They are risk factors that influence workplace safety, regulatory compliance, and business continuity. But the alignment goes deeper. Chapter 33 also connects strongly with Domain 2, Program Management. This is where sustainability shifts from environmental protection to strategic value creation. The economic pillar highlights cost reduction through efficiency, smarter resource utilization, and improved operational performance. Sustainability becomes a business case, not just protecting the planet, but strengthening profitability and competitiveness. The social pillar reinforces workforce sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the recognition of occupational health and safety as a human rights issue. When frameworks like the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI 403, are introduced, they demonstrate that sustainability performance is measurable, auditable, and integrated into management systems, just like safety programs. So what emerges from this alignment is the concept of the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit, not as three separate priorities, but as interconnected drivers of organizational success. Chapter 33 makes it clear that sustainable development requires balancing environmental stewardship, economic viability, and social responsibility. And for CSP candidates, this is a key mindset shift. Sustainability is not an optional specialty or something handled by another department. It is part of how safety leaders evaluate risk, influence strategy, and support long-term organizational survival. So as we begin this discussion, keep one idea in mind. Sustainability is no longer a parallel conversation running alongside safety. It is becoming part of the core framework that defines what effective safety leadership looks like today.
And that connection to the blueprint is vital. For a long time, sustainability was seen as something separate from safety. It was the domain of the environmental team or maybe the public relations department trying to make the company look good.
The greenwashing department.
Right. But Chapter 33 makes it very clear. Sustainability is a core competency for safety leadership. It links directly to business viability, human rights, and ultimately the survival of the organization.
Survival, that's a strong word.
It is. but it's the right one. If you want to pass the CSP, and more importantly, if you want to be effective in a modern safety role, you have to understand how safety fits into this green framework. It's not just about saving the planet in some abstract sense. It's about saving the business so you have a job to go to.
So let's set the context before we get into the weeds. We're looking at the 4th edition of this guide. I think it's interesting to note that this is a relatively new edition, isn't it? Why is a safety guide suddenly talking about saving the planet? Was this in the previous editions?
That's a great question to start with because it really highlights the evolution of the profession. And no, it wasn't there in the same way. The text actually highlights that while the first 3 editions of the study guide were well received, the 4th edition specifically expanded its scope.
So it's a deliberate addition.
A very deliberate one.
Right.
They didn't just tweak the typos, they added crucial new chapters to address the evolving needs of the environmental health and safety, or EHS, community. Chapter 33 is one of those additions. It's there because the definition of a safety professional's job is expanding. Well, we've gone from being the safety cop, who writes tickets for not wearing glasses, to being risk managers, and now to being sustainability leaders. It's not just about accident prevention anymore, it's about the integration of safety, health, and environmental management into a single, viable business strategy.
It's the evolution of the role, right? We've gone from safety guy or safety gal to EHS manager to risk and sustainability leader. It feels like the umbrella just keeps getting wider.
Exactly. The silos are breaking down. And the guide reflects that. It covers everything from legal aspects to record keeping, but this chapter on sustainability anchors the profession in the broader global context.
So what's our roadmap for this deep dive?
We're going to walk through the definition of sustainability, and I mean the real definition, not the buzzword version you see on corporate websites. We'll break down the 3 pillars, which is the core model. Then we'll get into the triple bottom line and the global challenges driving this whole movement, like population and climate change.
And then the big finale.
And then, as you promised, we'll pull up the CSP Blueprint 11 and see exactly where this fits in the exam domains. We'll show you where the points are.
Okay, let's unpack this. Section 1, unpacking sustainability. I feel like sustainability is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around in boardrooms until it loses all meaning. It becomes just a vague sense of doing good or being green.
It really does. It becomes wallpaper.
But if I'm sitting for the CSP exam, vague doesn't help me pass. I need the textbook definition. What does the source material say sustainability actually is?
You're right. Vague won't get you a passing score, and it won't help you run a department. The text provides a very specific foundational definition, and it comes from the United Nations, specifically the Brundtland Commission back in 1987. If you're taking notes, this is one to write down.
Okay, I'm ready.
The definition is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Okay, stop there. Let's break that down. Meets the needs of the present. That seems straightforward. We need energy, we need food, we need jobs.
Right. That's the first half of the equation. We have to live. We have to run our businesses. It's not about stopping everything.
But the second half, without compromising the ability of future generations. That's a polite way of putting it. But in engineering terms, we're talking about a deficit, right? We're taking out a loan against the future.
Exactly. Think of it like a trust fund, a massive family trust fund. If you have this fund and you only live off the interest it generates each year, that fund survives for your kids and your grandkids and so on. That represents sustainability. You are meeting your present needs, paying your rent, buying food without touching the principal amount.
And what we're doing now is what?
Right now, industry, and historically safety management to an extent, has been burning the principal. We are eating into the capital that future generations need to survive. We're using up topsoil, depleting aquifers, changing the climate. The Brundtland definition isn't just about being nice to the future. It's a mathematical warning that the current equation doesn't balance.
So when the exam asks about this, they aren't looking for a tree hugger definition. They're looking for a resource management definition.
Precisely. It's about stewardship. It's recognizing that we are borrowing resources from the future, and at some point, the bill comes due. But the text also brings in the US EPA perspective, the Environmental Protection Agency, which I think is really helpful for contextualizing this for professionals in the States.
Okay, what does the EPA add to this?
The EPA states that everything we need for survival and well-being depends, either directly or indirectly, on the natural environment.
That seems obvious, but I guess we forget it when we're surrounded by concrete and steel and air conditioning. We think we're separate from nature.
We do. We live in these engineered bubbles.
Sure.
But the EPA definition goes on to say that sustainability creates and maintains the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony.
Productive harmony, I like that phrase. It's not pristine, untouched nature, it's productive.
That's the key. That phrase, productive harmony, is crucial. It's not about locking away nature and never touching it. It's not about shutting down all the factories and going back to living in caves. It's about interacting with nature in a way that permits fulfilling the social and economic requirements for us and those future generations.
So it acknowledges the need for industry, for profit, for jobs.
Absolutely. It's a three-legged stool. You need the economy, you need society, and you need the environment to support both. Productive harmony means finding the balance point.
And speaking of balance, the text mentions a model to help visualize this. I'm picturing a Venn diagram.
Yes, that's the classic model, and it's the best way to visualize the tension we are talking about. Imagine three intersecting circles. These represent the three domains, or what are often called the three pillars of sustainability.
All right, what are the three circles?
Pillar number one is environmental. That's the planet. Think air, water, land, resources, the foundation. Pillar number two is economic. That's the profit or business viability. A business has to stay in business to do any good. And pillar number three is social. That's the people. Employees, community, customers, human rights.
And the magic happens in the middle, where all three overlap.
Precisely. The intersection where all three circles overlap is true sustainability. The problem, and where most companies get it wrong, is that they focus on one or two of the circles, but not all three.
Give me an example of that. What happens when you're missing a piece?
Okay, let's look at the intersection of just economic and social. That's a company that makes a lot of money. It treats its direct employees really well, great benefits, high pay. But it achieves this by dumping toxic sludge into the local river.
Right, that's the 1950s model of industry. Great jobs, but the river is on fire.
Exactly. And that's not sustainable because eventually the river catches fire, the EPA shows up, the regulations hammer you, the community sues you, and the economic pillar collapses under the weight of the environmental failure. The community turns against you, and the social pillar outside your fence line crumbles.
Okay, what about another combination? Say, environmental and social.
That's your nonprofit that does amazing environmental cleanup and supports the local community, but it runs out of money in 6 months and has to shut down. It's noble, but it's not sustainable because the economic pillar is missing.
So the text wants you to understand that these aren't three separate buckets. They are three support legs of a stool. If you kick one out, the whole stool falls over.
That's the perfect analogy. It's an interconnected system.
Let's do a deeper dive into each of these domains, because I think understanding the nuance here is what separates a generalist from an expert, especially for the exam. Let's start with domain one, environmental. This is the foundation.
It is. The text breaks this down into protecting the ecosystem, air, water, soil, and climate. But there's a key concept here that the source material highlights, and it's a word that trips people up sometimes: biodiversity.
Biodiversity. So we're talking about saving the rainforests and the whales.
We are, but the text explains why from a practical business standpoint. It's not just for the sake of having pretty animals to look at or creating a nice nature documentary. Biodiversity includes protecting the variety of life, because these complex, interconnected systems provide the food and resources we fundamentally rely on.
You mean like raw materials?
Raw materials, yes, but even more basic than that. The text mentions ecosystem services. These are things nature does for us, for free, like bees pollinating the crops that become our food, or wetlands filtering our water, or forests producing the oxygen we breathe. If you disrupt the biodiversity, you disrupt the supply chain of nature itself.
Okay, play devil's advocate with me here. I'm a safety pro. My job is to make sure guys don't fall off ladders and that they wear their safety glasses. Why do I care about bees and wetlands? What's so what for the safety professional?
That is the question every safety manager asks, and I don't blame them. It feels like a stretch. But let's connect the dots closer to home. Biodiversity isn't just the Amazon rainforest. It's the local water table your machine shop pulls from. If that ecosystem degrades because of pollution or overuse, your water quality plummets and your filtration costs triple.
Okay, that's a direct cost. I get that.
Or think about raw materials. If the rare earth minerals needed for your electronics come from a region that becomes politically unstable due to drought and famine, which are environmental issues, your supply chain snaps. You can't have a safe workplace if the factory doors are padlocked because you can't get the parts you need.
So it's a business continuity issue.
It's a fundamental business continuity issue. The expert perspective here, and the text supports this, is that if the environment collapses, the business collapses. No business means no jobs. No jobs means no safety program. Safety depends on the viability of the business, and the business depends on the environment. It's a direct chain.
That makes sense. It's looking upstream, way upstream from the final product. So under this environmental domain, what are the actionable subpoints we need to know for the exam?
The guide lists a few key areas that are very testable. First is energy. This implies moving towards systems and technologies that prevent pollution, renewables, energy efficiency, that sort of thing.
Right.
Think about questions related to reducing a company's carbon footprint.
Right.
Then there's materials. This is about waste reduction and elimination, the classic reduce, reuse, recycle hierarchy. And that links directly to safety, because usually waste materials are hazardous materials. If you reduce the waste, you reduce the hazard exposure for your team.
That's a great connection. Less waste, less exposure.
Exactly. Every drum of hazardous waste you don't generate is a potential spill, a potential exposure, potential fire you've prevented.
Okay, let's move to domain 2, the social domain. This feels like it's getting closer to our traditional wheelhouse as safety pros.
This is absolutely where the safety professional lives. The social domain focuses on social equity and human rights. It's about the people part of the equation.
What are the key components listed in the chapter?
Chapter 33 lists several: labor practices and decent work conditions, human rights, fair operating practices, and consumer issues.
Decent work conditions. That sounds a lot like safe work conditions.
They are synonymous in this context. The expert analysis here is that a safe workplace is a fundamental aspect of social sustainability. It's a basic human right. Let's imagine a hypothetical company, Acme Corp. Acme Corp is incredibly profitable. They recycle all their paper, they have solar panels on the roof, very green. But they run their assembly line at a speed that causes repetitive strain injuries in 40% of their staff within 6 months. They burn through workers and just hire new ones because unemployment is high in their town. Is that a sustainable company?
By the definition of Chapter 33, absolutely not. They're failing the social test completely.
Exactly. Even if they are green, environmental, and rich, economic, they are failing the social pillars. You cannot claim to be a sustainable company if you are burning through your most valuable resource, your people, injuring them and sending them home broken. That violates the social pillar.
It's treating people as a disposable resource, which is the definition of unsustainable.
Precisely. And the text also mentions community involvement, right?
It does, yes.
So it's not just about your employees. How does the plant affect the town next door? Are you a good neighbor? Are the trucks from your facility creating noise and pollution at all hours? Are you supporting the local economy? Social sustainability extends beyond the fence line. But for the CSP exam, remember this core link. Safety is a subset of the social killer.
Got it. Safety equals social. Now, domain 3, economic. The engine. I feel like this is where the friction usually happens. I can hear the CFO in the boardroom now. Going green is too expensive. We can't afford all these sustainability initiatives.
That's the common misconception, the knee-jerk reaction. But Chapter 33 tackles this head-on. The text argues that sustainability, when done right, actually reduces losses and improves profitability. It's the profit argument.
Yeah.
Corporations exist to make a profit. That is their legal structure. Sustainability ensures they continue to exist to make that profit in the long term.
How? Give me the mechanism. I need to be able to explain this to that CFO.
It's simple math, really. The text lists specific mechanisms, and you can frame it in terms of operational efficiency.
Decreasing waste equates to lower disposal costs. If you throw away less raw material, you pay less to buy it and less to the landfill to haul it away. That's a double win.
Okay, that's tangible.
2, energy efficiency means lower utility bills. If you retrofit your lighting to LEDs or optimize your HVAC system, that money goes straight to the bottom line every single month.
Reducing raw material usage through better process design means lower procurement costs. It's lean and green all at once.
And 4, I'd imagine, is avoiding fines.
Absolutely. Avoiding regulatory fines, avoiding lawsuits, avoiding the brand damage that comes from a major environmental or safety incident.
Yeah.
Those are all economic benefits. So sustainability isn't just a cost center, it's a cost-saving and risk reduction strategy.
So when I'm pitching a safety or sustainability initiative to management, I shouldn't just talk about saving the planet or doing the right thing. I should talk about reducing disposal fees by 10% and lowering electricity overhead.
Exactly. You speak the language of the economic domain to support the goals of the environmental and social domains. You show them the money. That's how you get traction.
This leads us perfectly into section 3, the triple bottom line. We've talked about the 3 domains: environment, social, economic. How is the triple bottom line, or TBL, different? Or is it just a catchy rephrase?
It's very similar in concept, but the framing and application are different. The 3 domains are a conceptual model, the Venn diagram we talked about. It's the philosophy. The triple bottom line, or TBL, is a framework for accounting and business reporting.
So it's about measurement.
Exactly. It expands the traditional reporting framework, which only looked at the single bottom line of profit, to include ecological and social performance. It forces a company to measure and report on all 3 pillars.
The famous people, planet, profit.
Right. And it's a direct one-to-one mapping. People corresponds to the social domain fair labor practices, community impact, and critically for us, safety performance. Planet corresponds to the environmental domain, your carbon footprint, water usage, waste generation. Profit corresponds to the economic domain, the traditional financial performance.
So TBL is how you operationalize the philosophy of the 3 domains. It's how you build a dashboard.
Correct. And the takeaway for the listener, especially for the exam, is that a company can be profitable in the short term, a high profit number, but ultimately fail because they ignored the other 2 bottom lines.
How so?
Well, they could ignore the planet, get hit with massive regulatory fines for pollution, and that wipes out their profit. Or they ignore the people, face a massive strike, lose all their skilled labor, suffer from terrible brand reputation, and their sales plummet. TBL forces the organization to look at the whole picture of success, not just the quarterly earnings report.
It's a balanced scorecard for survival. I like that. Let's shift gears to section 4. We've defined what it is, but why is this in the book now? What are the external pressures? The text outlines some specific global challenges driving sustainability. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, this is the why now part of the chapter. Chapter 33 is very explicit that this isn't just a nice idea. It's a necessary response to urgent global threats. It identifies 3 main drivers: population growth, climate change, and income inequality.
Let's take them one by one. Population growth.
The text cites the fact that the Earth has over 7 billion people and is heading towards 9 or 10 billion. The impact of this is a massive, unprecedented strain on natural resources: water, food, energy, minerals. We are simply using resources faster than the planet can regenerate them.
And the text makes a specific point about how to address this, which is pretty direct for a study guide.
It is. It explicitly mentions the need for education, particularly for women, and access to contraceptives to empower individuals and help manage population growth voluntarily. It frames this not as a political issue, but as a fundamental resource management issue. More people means more demand on a finite system.
Okay, that's a very macro level view. What about the second driver, climate change?
This one is more directly tied to industrial operations. The text defines this as global warming caused by the emission of greenhouse gases. The primary impact is that our global economy's reliance on fossil fuels must shift to renewable energy to prevent catastrophic environmental changes.
Let's ground this for the safety pro on the factory floor. How does climate change affect my job?
In very direct ways. Climate change means higher average temperatures. That means a greater risk of heat stress for your outdoor workers and even for indoor workers in facilities without climate control. It means more frequent and more severe weather events: hurricanes, floods, wildfires that can damage your facilities, disrupt your operations, and endanger your employees. This isn't just politics, it's operational risk management.
And the third one, income inequality. How does that fit in?
This is the growing gap between the wealthy and the poor, both within nations and between nations. The text argues that sustainable development must address this gap to ensure global stability. If you have massive inequality, you have social unrest, you have political instability, you have large-scale migration crises.
And that affects business how?
It creates enormous risks for global supply chains and business viability. If your factory is in a country that descends into chaos because of inequality and resource scarcity, your business is at risk. It all loops back to the social and economic domains. It's all interconnected.
It's fascinating how broad the scope is, but now I want to reel us back in. I want to put on my exam mode hat. We've been through the philosophy, which is critical, but let's get tactical. We promised the listeners we would connect Chapter 33 to the CSP Blueprint 11. Expert, I want you to pull up that blueprint file. Let's map this out. Where does all this philosophy help me pass the test?
This is the aha. Now, this is where the theory turns into points on the exam. If you look at the CSP Blueprint 11 file, which is the official map of the test, you can see exactly where the Board of Certified Safety Professionals expects you to apply this knowledge. And I'm going to tell you something. If you master this chapter, you are grabbing what I like to call free points on the exam.
Free points. I like the sound of that. Walk us through it. Where is the most direct link?
Okay, let's look at direct link 1. This is in Domain 5, Environmental Management. This domain, according to the blueprint, accounts for 6% of the total exam questions.
6%. Okay, that's not the biggest slice of the pie, but it's enough to be the difference between passing and failing.
Absolutely. 6% is about 12 questions on a 200-question exam. You can't afford to give those away. Now, within Domain 5, look at Task 4. It reads, and I'm quoting directly from the blueprint, determine sustainability principles and practices. Example, supply chain, reduce, reuse, recycle.
There it is, black and white. It couldn't be more direct.
It's a perfect match. Chapter 33 is the direct study source for this task. When the exam asks about supply chain sustainability or the 3 pillars or triple bottom line or those waste hierarchies, the answers are rooted in the concepts we just discussed. Now, I need to point out a very specific detail here, a navigational note for the student, because this can be confusing.
Okay, what's the catch?
In the study guide text itself, in the book's introduction, there's a list that puts sustainability under Domain 7.
Wait, the study guide says Domain 7, but the blueprint says Domain 5.
Yes, the text in the intro of the book has a list that puts it there. It seems to be a minor error from a previous version. However, in the actual CSP Blueprint 11 document, the official exam outline from BCSP Environmental Management, which is where sustainability sits, is Domain 5.
That is a crucial catch. So the key takeaway is to trust the blueprint over the book's intro. The content sustainability principles is what matters, and on the test, it lives in Domain 5.
Exactly. Focus on the content, not the numbering typo in the intro. If you see a question about sustainability principles, your brain should immediately go to Domain 5 and the 6% of points that live there.
Okay, so that's the direct link. But you mentioned there's a bigger chunk of the exam that this touches on that is more than just that 6%.
There is. And this is where a savvy test taker can really leverage this knowledge. Let's look at direct link 2. This is arguably even more important because it carries much more weight. We're talking about Domain 1, Advanced Application of Safety Principles. This domain is 25% of the exam.
Quarter of the test. That is massive. That's the biggest domain.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Now look at task 1 within that domain. Describe the principles of minimizing hazards using prevention through design, PTD.
We've talked about PTD before in other deep dives. That's designing safety from the very beginning, before the building is built or before the machine is ordered. How does that connect to sustainability?
The expert perspective here, and the way these 2 chapters in the guide connect, is that PTD is a form of sustainability. Chapter 35 of the text covers PTD in detail, but it overlaps heavily with the philosophy of Chapter 33. Think about it. By designing out hazards in the pre-design stage, what are you doing?
You're preventing injuries before they can ever happen.
Right. You are sustaining the workforce. That's the social domain of sustainability. And what else are you doing? You are also saving massive amounts of money on retrofitting later on. That's the economic domain.
Can we break that down with an analogy?
Sure. Think about building a house. If you look at the blueprint and say, hey, this hallway is too narrow for a wheelchair, you can move the line on the paper with an eraser. The cost of that change, 0. The waste generated, 0. But if you build the house, you frame it, you put up the drywall, you paint it, and then you realize the hallway's too narrow, what do you have to do? You have to bring in a demolition crew. You have to tear out the wall. You throw all that drywall and lumber into a dumpster. That's environmental waste. You pay a contractor a fortune to fix it. That's economic waste. And maybe someone got hurt or couldn't access their home properly in the meantime. That's social harm. PTD prevents all of that waste.
That's a great way to frame it. Retrofitting equals waste. So sustainable design is inherently safe design. A process designed to be sustainable is often, by its nature, safer.
Correct. If you design a process that uses fewer toxic chemicals from the start, environmental, you inherently reduce the potential for hazardous exposure to the worker, social safety. It's all connected. So a question on PTD is also a question on sustainability principles.
And there's one more link I want to highlight from the blueprint. Domain 7 training, which is 10% of the exam. Specifically, task 6. Understand adult learning principles.
Right. And while that's not a direct content match like the others, it's the implementation piece. Implementing a true sustainability culture requires training. You have to teach the people, the social domain, how to operate sustainably.
You can't just put up a poster.
Exactly. You can't just mandate recycle or conserve energy. You have to use adult learning principles to explain the why, get buy-in, and change the culture from the ground up. So when you're studying Chapter 33, you should be thinking, how would I teach these concepts to a frontline supervisor? How would I explain the TBL to a senior executive? That bridges the gap to Domain 7.
That's really comprehensive mapping. So Domain 5 is the direct hit. Domain 1 is the practical application through PTD, and Domain 7 is the implementation mechanism. I also saw the text mention some specific standards like the GRI. What is that, and is it something that could pop up on the exam?
The Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI. Yes, the text mentions it, and it's definitely fair game for the exam. Specifically, it calls out GRI 403, which is the GRI standard for occupational health and safety.
Okay, so what is GRI and why does it matter?
The GRI provides the world's most widely used standards for sustainability reporting. When you see a big corporation's annual sustainability report, chances are they're using the GRI framework to build it. By having a specific, detailed standard just for OHS, GRI 403, it formally recognizes that the right to a safe and healthy workplace is a universal human rights issue.
There's that social pillar again. It brings safety right into the heart of the human rights conversation.
Exactly. This ties the safety professional directly into the social pillar of global sustainability reporting. So a likely exam concept or question could be, according to global reporting standards like GRI, where does occupational safety performance fit? The answer is the social pillar, specifically linked to human rights and labor conditions. GRI 403 is the proof of that connection.
That is a solid takeaway. So if you see GRI on the exam, think reporting and think social pillar. Okay, let's move to section 6. Practical application and metrics. We know what it is. We know where it is on the test. But if I'm a safety manager on Monday morning, how do I measure this? I can measure TRR, my total recordable incident rate. I can measure DART. But how do I measure sustainability? Is there a STAT rate?
That is the million-dollar question, and the book is honest about the answer. It notes that unlike OSHA record keeping, which is very prescriptive, you have a 300 log, you have specific definitions for everything, there are no formally established universal key performance indicators or KPIs for sustainability. There's no OSHA sustainability log.
So it's the Wild West. Everyone just makes up their own numbers and calls it good.
It can feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But the solution the text offers is to use the triple bottom line as a framework to create your own metrics. You have to define what success looks like for your specific organization across those 3 pillars.
Can you give some concrete examples of what those KPIs might look like?
Sure. Let's build a mini dashboard right now. For the environmental planet side, you might track kilowatt hours of energy used per unit produced, or pounds of hazardous waste generated per month. That's a hard number you can track over time and set reduction goals for.
Okay, quantifiable. I like it.
For the social people side, you track things you're probably already tracking, your TRR and DART rates. Reduction in lost time injuries is a fantastic social sustainability metric. You might also add employee turnover rate or hours of employee training completed.
So our safety metrics are social metrics.
They are. And finally, for the economic profit side, you track the cost savings associated with the improvements in the other 2 pillars. You calculate the dollars saved from reducing energy use. You calculate the avoided costs from preventing an injury. You show the financial benefit.
So we don't need to invent entirely new math. We just need to categorize our existing metrics and maybe add a few new ones into the TBL buckets.
Exactly. You're likely already measuring safety incidents. Your facilities team is likely already tracking utility costs and waste disposal costs. The sustainability part is bringing those metrics together out of their silos and into a single dashboard that tells the story of the whole system.
That makes it feel much more manageable. It's not a whole new job. It's a new way of organizing and presenting the data we already have to tell a more powerful story.
And that's really the core message of this chapter and why it's in the 4th edition. Sustainability isn't an add-on program. It's an integration of what we already do into a broader, more strategic framework.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the structure of the CSP Blueprint 11 one more time, because I think you pointed out something brilliant there. I'm looking at the source text, the PDF of the blueprint again. Under Domain 1, Task 1 for PTD, it mentions avoidance, elimination, substitution.
Right, the top 3 tiers of the hierarchy of controls, the most effective ones.
The holy grail of safety, yes. And then under Domain 5, Task 4 for sustainability, it mentions reduce, reuse, recycle.
Which is the waste management hierarchy.
It's a parallel structure. The thinking is identical.
It is, and that is a brilliant observation.
Yeah.
Whether you are dealing with a machine guarding hazard or a stream of industrial solvent waste, the thinking is the same.
Unpack that a little more.
Okay. Avoidance and elimination in safety mean getting rid of the hazard completely. Don't use the toxic chemical in the first place. That is the exact same principle as reduction in environmental management. Don't generate the waste to begin with. It's about solving the problem at the source, upstream.
And the less effective controls.
PPE, personal protective equipment, is the bottom of the safety hierarchy. It's the least effective. What's the bottom of the waste hierarchy? Disposal, sending it to a landfill. Both are end-of-pipe solutions. They don't solve the problem. They just try to manage the consequences.
So the most sustainable solution is always the most effective safety solution.
It almost always is. If you have to buy PPE for your workers forever, that's a continuous material cost, a continuous waste stream for disposal. And you're still exposing them to a residual risk. If you design the hazard out completely, you stop the resource drain, the money, the materials, and the risk to your people. That is the ultimate convergence of safety and sustainability.
Wow. If you design the hazard out, you stop the resource drain. That should be on a poster in every safety office in the country.
It's the absolute truth of our profession.
All right, let's start bringing this massive deep dive in for a landing. We have covered a lot of ground today. We really got into the weeds. We defined sustainability using the Brundtland definition, meeting present needs without compromising the future, using that trust fund analogy.
Don't spend the principle.
Exactly. We visualized the three pillars: environment, economic, social, and discussed the critical importance of that intersection in the middle. We translated that into the triple bottom line for business reporting: people, planet, profit.
The balanced scorecard.
We mapped it deeply to the CSP Blueprint, specifically Domain 5, Task 4, and the critical intersection with Domain 1 on prevention through design and Domain 7 on training. And we talked about how safety is fundamentally framed as a social and human rights issue in this framework, with GRI 403 as the proof.
That's a solid summary of a huge topic.
Expert, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. We've looked at the book, we've looked at the blueprint, but take a step back from the exam prep. What is the one thing you want the listener to mull over on their drive home tonight?
I'd leave them with this. We have traditionally thought of safety as preventing accidents, stopping bad things from happening. And that's true, it is. But Chapter 33 teaches us to reframe our thinking. It teaches us that safety is actually about resource conservation. And the most valuable, most precious, most expensive resource an organization has isn't its oil or its water or its raw materials. It's the human being.
That's powerful.
If your safety program isn't sustainable, if it relies on burning people out, accepting a certain level of injury as the cost of doing business, then your business isn't viable. You are literally destroying your most critical asset. You are compromising the ability of the company to exist in the future. Safety is sustainability. They are the same thing.
That is a profound shift in perspective. Safety as resource conservation. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this deep dive. I sincerely hope this helps you, not just on the CSP exam, but in how you frame your daily work and your value to your organization.
I hope so too.
And do yourself a favor. When you get a chance, open up your Safety Professionals reference and study guide, read Chapter 33, and then look at Domain 5 and Domain 1 in the blueprint. See the connection for yourself. It will click.
Absolutely. Good luck with the studies.
Stay safe and stay sustainable. This is QHSE Talks, signing off.